Welcome to the Junk Drawer Mamas with your hosts Deena and Christina Queen. We are so glad you're here with us as we sort through the drama and the trauma of life's hidden struggles to uncover hope and healing with a side of humor on this roller coaster ride we like to call extreme parenting. Whether you're raising a child or a teen with special needs, dealing with challenging behaviors, tackling addiction, mental health issues, or working through the trauma associated with foster care, it's a lot, and we get it. But you don't have to do this alone. So grab a cozy chair, settle in, and let's take this journey together. Hello, and welcome to the Junk Drawer Mamas. This is episode 3, and in this episode, to start it off, we kind of wanted to give you guys a little bit of background of who we are, and kind of maybe a little look into how we grew up, or kind of how our life has gotten to the point to where it's at right now. So I'm going to go ahead and start off. My name is obviously Christina Queen, and I grew up in a large family. There was 9 kids in my home growing up. My parents raised 6 of our cousins, and so it was me and my 2 sisters, and then our 6 cousins, and there was a lot of kids, and there was some special needs and things like that. That is how I grew up. However, I never thought that I would have as many kids as I have now. I thought that I would have probably 3 or 4. I always did want to adopt, but we kind of sped that process up, and it went way beyond what we thought it would go. So I got married when I was 16 years old. Yes, I kind of jumped the gun on that, and we moved things way faster than what they should have. I got married to my first boyfriend, literally the first boy I ever kissed, and we have actually been married for 32 years. February 10th will be 32 years. So
that's so awesome.
We actually got married. The reason why we sped up the marriage is because I was pregnant. Yes, I was a good girl. I went to church my whole life. I did all that, but I was also a 16-year-old kid and made a mistake, and we rode that one through, and we had our first son we had both turned 17. So we had Meshach, and then by 19 we had our daughter Timberly, and we're like, this is a lot. We can't afford the kids that we have now, so let's not have any more. So we decided that we would wait. We would not have any more until we could afford to have more, and that was a long way down the road. And so at 10 years into our marriage, we actually decided to look into adopting. We wanted to adopt from another country. I did not want to adopt from the United States because I didn't want anybody to come and take the kid back from me. That was my mindset. That was my thought, is I was like, I do not want to fall in love with the baby and somebody come and take it from me. So we looked into adopting in other countries, and unfortunately, even though we were financially stable, we didn't have an extra $30,000 to adopt from another country. So we started looking into...
It's a lot of money.
Yes, it is. So we did start looking into foster care, and we just strictly wanted to adopt through foster care. And a lot of people think that it costs to adopt through foster care. It does not. That's all paid for by the state when you adopt through foster care. At least in our state it is. I believe most states are the same. So we set out to add to our family of 4. Meshach was 10 and Timberly was 8 at the time that we started fostering. And we set out to add 2 kids to our family.
So you were fostering 2, and you wanted to adopt. That's what you're saying?
Yeah. Well, we had 2. It's all we had is our 2 biological.
Okay.
And we did not want to foster. We wanted to adopt.
Okay. You were going right into the adoption.
Yes. But
I got it.
After going through
You're building fast, girl.
Right. After going through months and months of classes to become licensed, we were at our final meeting, and the lady walked in. It was a very interesting meeting. She actually walked in, asked us if this was our home study. This was the wrap up of us becoming licensed and getting to move forward with adoption, which we were looking forward to. And she came in and asked if we had any snacks for her to eat. And I panicked because we wanted to make a good impression, and all I had was Doritos. So I gave her my Doritos, and she proceeded to take her hair off and set it on the table next to her and continue with the meeting. I was like... My husband looked at each other like, did that really just happen? Anyways, In that meeting, though, she did tell us that basically all children that are coming into foster care, the goal is reunification. So if we wanted to only adopt, that there was no need for us to go forward. So we had to decide right there on the spot, as our hearts sunk, whether or not we would be willing to foster and potentially let that child go back home, or whether we were done. And we quickly decided that we were going to go ahead and foster. So in the first year of fostering, we had 12 kids that came in and out.
Wow.
Ages 0 to 3 years old that were in and out. 4 of those kids, we did end up keeping, and we got to adopt. It was 2 sibling groups. Our 2 boys were biological brothers, and our 2 girls were biological sisters. 2 separate families, 2 separate homes. And because they came with siblings, we ended up adopting 4 instead of 2. And so we went from our family with 2 kiddos to 6 kiddos in a little less than a year's time. And the 4 of them, the ages were so close together. I had 4 in diapers. We had newborn, 2 1-year-olds, and a 2-year-old. So it was very crazy, a very wild time. And we're like, okay, we did this. And within 4 years, yes, it took 4 years, we got them all adopted. And we said, okay, this is it. We're done. This is crazy. Who has this many kids? I used to make fun of my little sister who had 5 biological kids. I was like, why would you want this many kids? What are you thinking? And the next thing I knew, we had 6 kids. So we stopped fostering at the time. We just kind of let our license go. And right shortly after letting our license go, our son was 17 at the time. And me and my husband were in Florida for our anniversary. And we got a phone call saying that he had been hit by a car and that he was in cardiac arrest. And before we could leave the hotel room, they called us back to let us know that he was gone. And of course, that is something that shakes you to your core. So we walked through that, and that was something that you just never think is going to be you. That's something that happens to somebody else, but not you. So in all of that, we had our 4 little ones who were 5, 6, 6, and 7 at the time, and our 15-year-old daughter. And so for about a year after that, it was just at least a year probably or more. We just felt numb. It was just all you could do to get up and breathe and get dressed in the morning and to take that next breath. But we had four little ones and a 15-year-old daughter that we knew we had to be there and present for. So we did. And of course, we leaned into Jesus throughout that whole first year, really big time. And one of our little ones who absolutely adores babies, she's always been so in love with babies. She was only 7, and she said, well, she'd probably turn 8 by now. And she says, Mom, we need babies. We need more babies. And obviously, me and my husband was not going to have any more biological at that time. Although we did look into it. We actually thought about that. We did kind of entertain that for a little while. And we ended up buying a 10-bedroom home, and we started fostering again. And we said, that's it. We're just going to foster. We're not going to adopt. And here we are. Since then, we have adopted 5 more and are awaiting another adoption right now. And we've got 5 foster kiddos. So we keep saying, that's it, we're done. And God says, nope, no, you're not. So we have just learned to quit telling God our plans, because they get changed every time anyways, and to just say yes and just be obedient in this. I know it's a lot. I know a lot of people don't understand this walk, but this is not meant for everybody, but this is our walk, and this is where God has us, and we will stay here until he releases us from it. So that is us. Like I said, it'll be 30 on the 10th, and then actually on the 11th is the 13th anniversary of losing our son, Meshach. So a lot is going on in February, and we have 4 birthdays in February. So pray for us, guys. Pray for us.
Oh my goodness. How do you top that? Well,
we also have 4 grandbabies. I forgot to say that. Mm-hmm. That is extremely important. We have 4 grandbabies that, and our daughter, our 15-year-old daughter, Timberly, at the time, she married her son's best friend. She married Meshach's best friend, and he is amazing. He is an amazing son-in-law. God did so much restoration in that. He is so much like Meshach was too. And that's just beautiful. And we have 4 beautiful grandbabies. So it's been a beautiful, beautiful thing to watch our daughter and her husband. He's such a good man and such a good dad. So,
that was Meshach's best friend, right?
Meshach's best friend, yes.
Yeah, wow.
Yes.
Amazing.
Yep.
Wow, girl, I don't know how to top that.
You don't have to top it. Just tell us.
I don't. And so that's the thing I love about this is that, we each have different journeys.
Yes.
And I've heard this many times, and I'm still blown away every time I hear it. And there's so many gaps that she didn't say, but she's writing her true life story, and I can't wait for that to be out because I'm like, you didn't say this, you didn't say that, you didn't say this. We're both writing our true life stories, and and so there's so much more that you could have said in there. It was like a warp speed version of that, but just to see where you were at, and where, like, one of the things that I think is absolutely amazing about you, Christina, is that you did not graduate high school. You had to drop out in 8th grade so that you could help your family in your family business, your dad's business. But you are an entrepreneur. You are an author. You are a published author. Now, we're both published authors, but I'm saying, like, it doesn't matter where you started.
Right.
It's where you end up. And so this episode actually is going to be about our identity, but we wanted to share a little bit about who we were, like who is Christina and Deena? What is our backstory? Because it ties into, our identity that God created us to be, and sometimes how that gets lost in the role as a mom and a wife.
Yes.
So I will try to quickly share my story real quick. I don't have as fascinating as a story as Christina, but
yes, she does.
I have one brother. He's an amazing brother. He's my twin, Fred. And my parents, they met on a blind date. My dad was in the service, and my mom knew his sister, Pearl, and I think they cut hair together. Pearl said that her brother was going to be home. He needed a date for a New Year's Eve party. They met on a New Year's Eve party, and 9 months later, they got married. And then 2 years later, they had us. So 9 months later, they did not have a baby. They had 2 years without us.
Not like us.
Right. And so they have like this most beautiful romantic, love story. But both of our families are 100% Sicilian, Italian, both from the same part in Sicily. My dad's family is very Italian. My grandparents spoke broken English. My mom's is more of American Italian. But we grew up in a very big, very loud Italian family with lots of cousins. I only have one brother, but there's lots of cousins in there. So on both my mom and my dad's side, they had a lot of children in their family. So I'm used to a big family. And so, well, we were, in the beginning of we were raised in the city until we were about 5. And then we moved out to the country. And that's when everything, changed for my mom and dad. They were city people, and my dad wanted to move us all out to the country. And so I grew up as a country girl. I grew up on a farm. And, although we have roots from Detroit, Detroit, Michigan, which is where both families originated from. But I grew up on a small farm in a small city. It's called Smiths Creek in the middle of nowhere, and there was not a lot of kids out where I lived. I went into a school that was further out, so a bus had to come and get us. But where I lived, there was no kids, really, very few kids. That was where we grew up. So I was always, feeling like I was a fish out of water. I don't know why I wasn't really much for country life. Now as an adult, I would do anything to get back to that. I'm living in the city now. But growing up, I grew up on a farm. We worked hard. We had, many, many horses and cows and chickens and pigs and, dogs and cats. And, we had 22 acres. We baled hay and, you can imagine everything that we did. That's how I was raised. Hard work. My parents always had businesses, and they ran a farm, and my dad worked full time as a tool and die maker. My mom had a business decorating cakes and cake and candy store. And then we did a wedding planning business and all that while they ran the farm, while they raised us. So my parents were super busy, and I sort of fell into that same type of life. My life has always been like that. It's always been all about family, all about business, all about, the next thing that we were doing. I was married before. I'm married now to my husband for 25 years, but both of us were married before. So we have divorce in our family. And in my family, on both my mom and dad's side, actually my brother and I are the only ones that have ever gotten divorced. So I have the whole twin stuff. I have the twin thing where everything that happens to him happens to me. I have a lot of those weird twin stories. I could spend a whole other episode talking about the weird twin stuff that we've had, but we are the only two that have ever really gotten divorced. And we both got remarried. We're very happily married to our spouses now. But I married my high school sweetheart, and we were together for 11 years, and that didn't go the way we had planned it to go. But God had other plans. I did not have any children with that. We tried for 7 years to have children, and we couldn't have any children. I was told I couldn't have any. So it's crazy to me that I'm here doing a mom podcast, because at one point in my life, I thought I was never going to have children. I thought that I was just going to be this executive. I had my education in banking and finance, and I worked as an executive advertising. I was like corporate businesswoman once I had become an adult, and when I was married to my first husband, we didn't have kids. But then, when I met my current husband, Doug, we had kids right away. He had 3 of his own. He was going through a divorce, and we very quickly, after we got together, we got pregnant. And then we, decided that we needed to get married. Now, it didn't turn out that way. It wasn't like, we had this illicit thing going on. We didn't. We really were very much in love with each other. Weren't planning on having a baby right away, but we sped that up and we decided to get married right away. So I was 4 months pregnant when we had our first child together. But we still would have, that would have been the road we went down anyway. So I can't understand what you were like. So 30 years old at that time, had to tell my Italian parents that their daughter was pregnant, but not married. Now, my dad was super excited. My mom was, at the time, was not very happy about that. But even at 30, like, it doesn't matter whether you're a teenager or 30, you still have to go to your parents and tell them that. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But man, did God redeem that, because, my family just absolutely adored, Doug and my kids and all of that. And so I got married to Doug with 3 kids and ready to have one on the way. So I was instant mom. I went from being a corporate mom to instant mom. And so very quickly, I had a baby, and then we had 3 children. We ended up homeschooling those. So here I am, go again from business. That whole world had been shut down. I'm no longer working outside of the house. I became a stay-at-home mom, raising our kids, and just had a brand new baby. And then we decided to open up a youth outreach. And we ended up for 20 years, almost 20 years, we ran this youth outreach. It started out of our house. We had we started out just as a church youth group. Honestly, my youngest son was a baby at the time. And then, at one point, the pastor said, we really need help in the youth room. Okay, I'll help, and so the youth leaders at the time left. They went and moved to Florida. And I told my husband, you got to help me in here. I don't know what I'm doing. And then something was birthed in there. We really just became this dynamic duo, and we really loved that. And so the long story short, we went from the church to our house. And then we ended up having a full youth center. Again, that's a whole other episode. There's too much to tell here, but we became full-time youth leaders, and we opened up a nonprofit, and we had been working with at-risk teens for, almost 20 years, almost 1,000 teens over the years that we had. It went from just this little Bible study in my house to then we ended up moved it and rented a place and kept going and going until we had a full youth center. And then, when we no longer could serve 100 kids in our house, we were serving them out of, meals every week. And we had a weekly youth program. We couldn't fit 100 kids in our house. We would do it in the summer. And then in the wintertime, we'd hold it in our garage. And they just kept coming until we could no longer house them in our house legally anymore. So we ended up getting a building. And then that went from just a weekly youth program to we ended up having a music venue. We had bands that would come in from all over the United States to play, Christian bands that would come in, so we could provide like a kind of a fun party nightclub atmosphere for teens, but it was clean. Then we also had a drama team, and then we had an after school program. And then we would, we did a drug rehab program. We did online school and stuff for kids that, were not doing so well in public school. I mean, it was just one thing after the other. And we had this huge program. And then that came, during that time. So we had, 4 kids by that time. And then during the middle of all of that, God decided to give us Gracie. And so she's got Down syndrome. At first, I was very shocked. I spent a lot of time grieving the life that I thought we were going to have. Like, really, I was 42 by this time. And I thought we were close to retirement. Our kids were old enough now they could take care of themselves. And not only am I having another baby, but it's somebody that I'm going to have to take care of for the rest of my life. So my journey really starts there. Why I'm here today, why I'm on this podcast, is because it started there. I had to go through a major identity shift. And being this youth leader, we were very well known in our community. We were leaders in our community. I was speaking all over. being everything to now I am responsible, or my husband and I are responsible for this child. But obviously we know that most people know the mom usually has the brunt of the responsibility of raising a child. My husband worked full time, still does work full time, and we were running our youth outreach. So I had the brunt of taking care of her. And it was taking its toll on me because it was not what I was resistant to having to do it. So this is one of those things that I write about in my book, because it's something that most people don't want to talk about. But I love my daughter more than anything, but I didn't want to be a parent again. Like, there was this wrestling and this deep guilt and shame that I felt that way. I didn't want to do it. I was mad at God. Why did you call? Like, there's so many people out there, like, you're talking about adoption. Why don't you give those people a baby? Why would you give me a baby when I don't even want another baby? And I am in the busiest season of my life running this very large youth outreach. And I don't even see how this is. Why would you pick me to do this? So I wrestled, like literally wrestled with God over this whole situation. But looking back now, and what I write about is that she literally saved my life. I didn't know that I needed saving. I didn't know I was so lost. I didn't know that I needed God as much as I did. You know, I'd been serving him. We were Christians. Like, I thought I was a good Christian, but I had no idea how lost I really was until God brought me Gracie. Like, what I thought was meant to literally be a prison for me became my freedom. It became my purpose in life. And so I will share more about that as we really get to know each other on this podcast. And, you know, it's what I share about, especially Empower Moms in my ministry. And Christina has Faith Through Foster Care, and we'll kind of talk about that a lot. But you never understand until you go through something. I really had to grieve the life that I thought I was supposed to have, what I wanted, what we were looking forward to, and accepting what was now my life, you know, trying to figure out how to navigate that. So I lost who I was. I didn't even know what my identity was anymore. I just felt like I was constantly in this dark place. And so when it comes to identity, I thought it was one thing. God said, no, there's something else. Somewhere along the line, he showed me who I was. It wasn't even about my identity as a youth leader, as a wife, or as a mom. He showed me who I was and my identity as a human being, as a daughter of the King. And I went from crying out to God in desperation to walking with him, partnering with him, knowing who I am, knowing who he is for me. And it's separate from being a mom. No, I'm not. There's nothing against moms that like love that role of being a mom, and that's what they feel their full identity is. I am not saying anything against that. But for me, I just knew from when I was little, there's so much more to it. I knew that there was something that God placed me on this earth, even though I couldn't articulate it when I was younger. I just knew that there was something more than that. And so when I felt like that was taken away from me, that now I had to be a mom for the rest of my life. She wasn't just going to grow up and be 18 and just go off and get married and have her own life. I don't know what her life holds. I know God holds her in his hands, and God has a plan for her, and it's good. That's what I do know. And that's what I stand on. And that's what is important to me. My other 4 kids are grown, and I have 4 grandkids too. And so I love my grandkids, but I'm still raising a child just like they are now. And that was not part of my plan. That was not part of my retirement plan. I'm not going to be an empty nester. Right. You know what I'm saying? So I went from being this, like, thought I was never going to have children. I was this corporate executive to now I am, you know, in almost retirement age, and I'm raising a child along with my children. That is something that, like, your identities get so lost in that shuffle of that. And so even this morning, I was reflecting on that just how far God has taken me. Because I remember being like just on this such dark road to the point where I literally didn't want to exist anymore. And it wasn't that I wanted to hurt anybody or hurt myself. I just didn't want to be in pain anymore. I didn't want to feel lost and unseen. So for all those moms that just feel like they don't even know who they are, they're so overwhelmed by the amount of responsibilities that they have, the amount of taking care of somebody else. Like, you know, as you all know, every mom goes through seasons where, like, gosh, a hot shower is a luxury. Clean clothes that you haven't worn all week long. And, you know, a messy bun that you literally recomb and throw back up in your head again. And don't tell me you don't do it, because you do. If you're one of those moms that takes a shower in the morning, at night, you know, and you have fresh laid clothes, we can't be friends. It's not me. Anyway, you know what I'm saying? Like, there were long periods where I didn't have clothes that didn't have spit up on it, because Gracie had this reflux issue when she was born, part of her esophagus. And so, like, everything came up, everything. We could have just wore plastic clothes. Like, seriously, I had to change of clothes for me and her, because it was just constant throwing up all the time with her. And so when you're sitting around in like the same clothes you've had on for days and you haven't slept and you know, it's like, where am I? Where's the girl in me? Where is Deena in all of this? And again, all moms go through that, but it continues and continues and continues. And now it's 14 years later. And I'm like, oh my gosh, where is Deena in all this? So that's what this last year for me has been, is just finding who that is outside of being Doug's wife and Gina, Tommy, Dougie, and Tony and Gracie's mom. Who is Deena? You know, and I'm excited about finally who God is showing me who I am. And I'm sure you are too. Like, you're excited about who you are becoming outside of, I can't even list all your kids' names. I know all their names and know them, but I can't list them all. Anyway, there's something about finding who Christina is and who Deena is and what our role is on this planet outside of just being someone's mom or someone's wife or someone's dishwasher or laundry or taxi driver or house cleaner or whatever it is, the many roles that moms wear. And again, this does not negate or minimize what dads do or men do. They do bring a lot to the table. I could not do what I'm doing if my husband didn't provide for us.
Same.
He's downstairs right now watching Gracie, and your husband is watching your 10 kids while we're sitting in our little offices in our houses while we're up, you know, doing our podcast.
Yes.
And so you might hear a screaming baby in the background, or, you know, a kid that's asking mom, when are you going to be done? But that's just, again, this is the rawness of what we do, the uncut version of who Christina and Deena are.
Yeah. Yeah.
And finding our new identities in that,
exactly,
you know, so.
Exactly. And this has been, probably about 3 years in the making for me, of just God really pulling me outside of myself and my whole identity being wrapped up in my kids. I mean, talk about truly just feeling like that's what I was, is just a mom. And I was okay with being just a mom, because it's not, we all know as moms, it's not just a mom. There's a lot to that, but that's how I felt. Everybody would say, oh, what do you do? Or what do you, you know, and it was, oh, I'm a mom. I'm a mom. Everything was all, I'm a mom. And I was okay with it. I thought it was a great thing. But in the last 3.5 or about 3 years, we walked through like one of the biggest trials in our life. Two of the biggest trials in our life, apart from losing Meshach. We walked through serious, major trauma in these last few years. And in that and through that extremely painful period that we had walked through, God just started showing me that my identity was in Him. And that, yes, the kids are part of who I am, because I'm their mom. But He created me for more than just to be mother to 17 kids. There was a lot more that He wanted me to do, and my, you know, immediate reaction is like, well, but God, how can I do that? I'm a mom. This is what you know. And it was just this season of, honestly, of removing things that I didn't want removed. That it was painful, so painful, but removing things that I didn't want removed and that I would never have voluntarily let go of. But God knew. But God knew what we needed here. And God knew what needed to be taken and moved and rearranged to get us to the point to where we are now, which I would have never become an author. He led me into writing a children's book for little ones that are coming into foster care, which was a crazy sidetrack to my journey in this whole writing thing, because I set out to write my true story. I was like, okay, I'll do that. I'll write this one book, but that's it. And now we just got our book compilation yesterday from Amazon.
Right here.
That we wrote a book
called
with
Resilience.
our warriors.
There's 14 authors. Where there's me and there's Christina. We're so excited to be part of these 14 amazing writers, and there's three books in that trilogy anthology.
And we each have a chapter. Deena's chapter is about grace, and mine is about Meshach. But yeah, I mean, you it's so easy to get tied up in all of that, in the motherhood stuff, because it keeps us busy. It's a full-time job and then some. It's a full-time. It's for me, and right now, you know, we've got so many kids. Once again, we've had 10 kids over the last 10 or 12 years, most of the time. And we just entered a season where we just recently got We had kind of went back off of that. We only had 4 or 5 kids, which I know might sound like it's still a lot for some people, but it was like a season of rest and a season of peace. And in July, we jumped it back up to the 10 kids. And, we're getting used to this way of life again and just the flow of all of that. And this time around, there's a lot more. We've got 4 kids in therapies, physical, speech, occupational. There's just a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so easy to lose yourself and to lose your identity. And I have struggled since I was little. For as long as I can remember, I have struggled with my identity in general. I went up and down with my weight over the years, which is a huge part of a woman's identity.
Yep.
I mean, I struggled for years and years, even coming into foster care. If I showed you, if I showed you guys the picture of me when we became licensed to foster it, I think I was 28 years old at the time. When we became licensed foster parents, I was 265 pounds, and quickly decided that when we knew that we were going to adopt, that physically I could not keep on the way I was, and I ended up having the gastric bypass. And that whole thing is that was a lot. And it just plays such a huge part of your identity, all these ups and downs and ins and outs. And you think, well, if I lose all this weight, this is the way it's going to be. It's not.
No.
Your identity has nothing to do with the way you look. It has to do with you and who God's created you to be, and whether or not you're fulfilling that purpose, or whether you're just sitting there and just kind of twiddling your thumbs, maybe so wrapped up in parenting and what that looks like that you are ignoring what the other things that God is telling you that's there, that he wants you to step into, that being a mother is not your only role.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's just little, even if it's not something that big, there's that God's calling us to than to be a mom. And I say that from a standpoint of somebody has spent most of her adult life thinking that that's what I am, is just a mom. And I'm okay with being just a mom. That's what God made me to be, is a mom. And I do think that is primarily my calling, is as to be a mom. But there is more to that than just that. And we all have got to kind of press in and get alone with God. Those morning times, it was when I started finally. I've been so resistant my entire life to getting up early in the morning. That is not me. I am not an early person. I used to get up. I mean, I had my older kids for years sleep trained to where they would wake up later in the day with me. And I know that sounds horrible. And I know that's not necessarily a good thing, but that's what I did, because I hated getting up early. But in these last several years, God started getting me up and waking me up. And I've been getting up at, whatever, 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, most mornings, so that I can have that time alone with God. And it's hard to get used to at first. But I found that just getting alone with him, he's just showed me so much about who he's created me to be. And I've still got such a long way to go. I have by no means arrived. I still struggle daily with my identity. It's just natural, I think, too, as a woman and as a mom, to struggle with that and to compare yourself
Absolutely.
to other people and to what they look like, and you wish you had that, or you wish you could be that, or you wish you had, and I feel like that's, the devil likes to do that to us too, and he will continue to do it if we let him. But that time alone with God has become such a priority for me that I shared a post on Facebook the other day that Deena's seen, because I made the mistake of trying to sleep
All
in.
your kids.
There's been there's been a lot of sickness kind of floating around my house, because it seems to go through a few kids at a time, so it can take weeks to get something through my house, the sickness, and I was feeling not so great, so I slept in until a few minutes till 8, and I was like, oh my gosh, because that's what time the kids get up, that's what time we wake everybody up. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got like 3 minutes. I've got to get in my office and I got to pray. So I told my husband, I said, okay, this is what the kids are having for breakfast. Tell them that this is what they're having for breakfast. And I'm locking myself in my office for just give me 30 minutes to have my prayer time, so I can deal with today, so that I can do this right and not just like lose myself all throughout the day. So I get into my office and I lock the door, and within a few minutes, I had called them, woke everybody up. In a few minutes, I got one at the door saying, Mom, through my little peephole, Mom. I'm like, I just stayed as silent as I could be, thinking, okay, My bedroom door is standing wide open, which is the door
If
right
I'm
next
just
to
quiet,
mine.
they'll go away.
It's right. That's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, the next door is open where they can walk right in there to where their dad's at, and he can deal with everything, and I'm just going to stay super quiet. So I did that. And it was not working. I'm like, finally, I had to, because my kids are all sitting in the kitchen and I've got a camera, I'm like, I'm watching them, like, they're all sitting there. Nobody's eating. Nobody's doing anything. And I'm like, I already had this conversation with my husband.
Without mom.
Right. I'm like, I already told him what to tell him to eat. So finally, I'm like, I get on the camera and the speaker and I'm like, bagels, eat bagels or eat, I'm giving them the list of the stuff that they can have for breakfast.
Coming over the speaker, eat bagels.
I'm like giving this list of, okay,
you
can either have this, or that. Those are your options this morning. So you can have that. And then I try to stay silent. And all of a sudden I start hearing.
They were all lined up in front of her door. Yeah. She took this picture of them.
From my camera, my camera view, right outside my office door, which is also right next to my bedroom door, that was open with my husband sitting in there.
You're calling your husband out. He's going to watch this and be like, thank you, honey.
No, he always says, well, I told him.
I told him to go eat cereal.
Right. Yeah, I told him. So I'm like hearing this tapping at my door and I'm still trying to stay quiet and it's not working. I already let the cat out of the bag when I spoke through the speaker. Like, they know where mom's at and I'm on the other side of this door and there are literally 6 of them.
Like the all-powerful Oz, the person behind the curtain.
Yep. 6 of them are caught in the camera and they're all just standing there staring right at my office door. And I showed it to my 10-year or my 11-year-old and she's like, Mom, we look like zombies. And I'm like, yep, you should.
My gosh,
so but it's so easy to get. My gosh, just like that's what our purpose is.
Relate to those situations.
Yes.
Like, I don't know if you can relate to this, and we're definitely going long on this episode, so I apologize to everybody, but I don't want to cut off because it's just such good, rich content. But for me, when I take a shower, it has to be quick. I have to be quick in the shower. I don't get to just take a long, long shower. When I'm going shopping, I'm like, Doug, can you watch Gracie for a minute? I'll be back as soon as I can. And I feel like I'm rushing through the store so I can hurry up and get back because I know that he's watching her and he's got work to do and whatever he's doing. He works from home and at an office, so sometimes he's at the house. So his job is not really to wash her. But sometimes I'm like, it's just easier for me to not go with her because it takes 10 hours if I take her with me. I could get this done in an hour. I'll be right back. So I'm rushing. Everything is rushing. Rushing getting ready, rushing taking a shower. I have to quickly eat because I've got it, and so
yes.
I don't think people realize that don't have that. And nothing against our husbands, but I don't think they even realize that. Like, they can come and go as they please. They don't have that responsibility, but we have their responsibility. So I know I get into this kind of conversation with my husband. Yeah. I don't have his responsibility. And I don't have to go out every day and work and make sure that all the bills are paid and all of that.
Yes. So props to our husband for doing that.
Yes.
For sure.
I am totally appreciative of that.
Yes.
But like, he gets to go on he walks twice a day. He gets to go walk, that's his time alone where he's exercising and stuff. I'm like, walk. I can't take Gracie. She's too big for a stroller. I try to push her in a wheelchair, then I'm not actually getting my steps in at that point. Because if you put your hands on the cart or on the wheelchair, then it doesn't count your steps. I'm like, oh, it's just not the same. So anyway, I'm just saying, like, we have to do things that,
that's different than what our husbands. Yeah, that's different.
Yes. But if we put,
go ahead. Go ahead. I was
gonna say, if we put all of our identity in that and being a mom, we're always going to be left short.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? We're always going to be left unfulfilled and unsatisfied. If that's all we're thinking about is all that stuff and everything that I have to do and all the roles that I have to do in that, we're going to feel unsatisfied because we were never meant to be satisfied by anything other than Jesus, other than God. It's only when we find our identity in him that we can even do the job as mom.
Yes. And so many of us
that's
also
not going to change. Those chaotic situations are not going to change whether I know my identity in Christ or not. But the fact that I do know my identity in Christ makes that walk as a mom so much better.
Yes.
I'm not saying I don't have bad days or moments, but I can pull myself out of that stressful situation and know who I am and center myself, like you were saying, get in alone. Even if it's 5 minutes, you got to lock yourself in your office.
It literally might just be 5 minutes and trying to be quiet and trying to sneak because I feel like every morning I get up in the morning and I creep so quietly. I sneak I'm like so stealthy and so quiet so I don't wake up either one of the sleeping babies or the 2-3-year-olds that if they wake up, the whole house is going to wake up. So I try to do it real quiet, but we, a lot of times as moms too, look for, we look to our kids to make us happy. If they're doing this and that, then we're going to be happy. Or our husbands to make, that's not what we're supposed to do. For years, it was, everything was the kids and my husband. And if this is going to make me happy, if this happens, this is going to make me happy. And that's not the right mindset to have. We are responsible for our happiness. The other thing, too, like you're talking about being happy,
Christ. Is if you put your identity in that, when somebody else is not meeting the expectations that you think, then you start getting upset with them because your identity is in something that's not Christ. So I'm saying my identity as a wife and as a mom, and then there's not the support there to support that identity. Then you start feeling, that's when your expectations aren't met. And that's when you start feeling frustrated. And that's when you start getting upset with your husband because he's not doing the things, but that's not really his role. His role is not to be everything for you. That's God's role. He's there to support that. But I'm saying, like, when our identity is in a function or a role, then it's very easy for somebody else to disrupt that. And then you start feeling like, this is all I'm here for. That's all I'm here for, is just to feed everybody and serve everybody and do all that. And that's not why we're here.
Yeah.
That is not why God did not give us these children, especially special needs children, so that we could just give up everything, our life. He wants us to have life and have it abundantly.
Yes.
And he has a plan for our life, and it's good. And it's not just to wipe poopy diapers every day.
Right. Or wipe it off the walls or wherever it might land.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. Oh, the things we've said as a mom.
Containers.
Right. Yes.
Anyway, we are
probably
running
over.
Very long today. Yes, we are. So we want to wrap this up and Christy and I can talk and talk and talk.
Yes, we can.
So anyway, what I wanted to say really quickly too is that we are still figuring this whole podcast thing out. I think we're still figuring the whole mom thing out, even though we have we have almost 60 years of experience between us as moms.
It is something new every day.
It is still something new. But I want to apologize if like mics are too loud or I don't know. Like I'm hoping that nobody cares about that. Nobody cares what we look like, whether our sound is right, whether the quality of the video is right. And I know that, I hope you just love us and what we bring to the table and that you find, your tribe with us. And that's all that's important. We'll get better as we go.
Yes.
Okay.
We promise.
It's okay. We showed up. We showed up today.
Yes.
With the kids in the background and the husband's going, are you done yet? Because I can't do this anymore.
Yes. Yeah. Yep,
so anyway, thank you guys so much for being with us. We are so looking forward to the next episode. I think what we're going to talk about on our next episode is that whole, what stress does, because we were talking about a lot of this, but what stress does when somebody is in an extreme situation, what that does to someone's well-being, emotionally, physically, financially, with the chemicals that happen in our body. That's one of those things that, look at it. It's 4. It's 44 minutes and 44 seconds we've been recording. Woohoo!
Yes.
That's important to us.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
Anyway.
Yeah. Anyways, but
all right, ladies. Thank you so much. Ladies, men, whoever's watching, we love you guys.
Yes.
And we'll see you next time.
Yeah.
Have an awesome week.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Hey, thanks for hanging out with us and listening to the Junk Drawer Mamas podcast. If today's episode encouraged you, share it with a mom who could use a little extra love and support. We'd love to hear from you too. Leave us a review and let us know what you think, or send us your ideas for what you want us to tackle in the junk drawer. You can email us anytime at junkdrawermamas@gmail.com. Stay connected with us on social media. Follow Deena at Specially Empowered Moms and Christina at Faith Through Foster Care for more encouragement and updates on our upcoming books. From two mamas in the throes of extreme parenting, we want you to know that you're doing a great job, mama, and you don't have to have it all together. But what's hidden can't be healed, so let's keep sorting through it together, one step, one story, and one laugh at a time. See you next time when we tackle another item in the junk drawer of life. Have an awesome week.